no surprise that the defense market is expected to experience significant growth over the coming years. Today, we're sitting down with Chief Strategy Officer and Managing Principal Umang Modi to talk about trends. Hi, Umang.
Hi, Jess.
Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
So what are you seeing? What trends are you seeing?
Well, first and foremost, and this isn't necessarily a new trend, but cyber security continues to be at the forefront of everything, really. I mean, any decision you make, any system you want to bring online, any design change, cyber has to be first and foremost your number one consideration. Outside of that, we've seen finally some acceleration towards adopting cloud solutions. And that's not just infrastructure as a service, but also we're seeing platform as a service, software as a service, finally really being leveraged, as well as we're seeing the government move towards adopting more COTS products with some minor customization for use in the government rather than, building systems from scratch. And then I'd say lastly, the government is probably a generation behind, but better late than never, which is the agile methodology, not just from a software development perspective, in that case, yes, but as well just in mindset, processes, things along those lines.
To understand agile from a software standpoint, but talk to us a little bit about agile from a mindset standpoint.
Sure. So I mean, the whole dichotomy between agile and waterfall, right, is one is taking you build for something large, and you have multiple gate reviews and testing that is not necessarily involves the customer or the stakeholders, and anytime there's a problem, then you kind of go back to square one. And replacing that's in the software development mindset, and agile is much more iterative and involving the stakeholders in every step of the way and incrementally building. But what you end up with is you get to an end result a lot faster and a lot more efficiently.
And a better product.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's excellent. So as agencies start to modernize, as the government starts to incorporate more modern technologies, what should they keep in mind? One
thing that is a little bit of a dangerous trend, which I'm seeing is, and this goes along with adopting of COTS and software as a service, but also the agile mindset, which is trying to leverage motivators or incentivizers, things that rewarding behavior that might be successful in the private sector, and trying to take those in cookie cutter form and apply them within the government. And it doesn't always work out that way.
So what works in the private sector doesn't always translate to the government.
Right.
And what does that look like? What are some examples of where you've seen that happen?
So especially I've seen some RFPs or some acquisition strategies where the customer is looking for specifically companies that have no government experience. For example, that's, I get having a new way of looking at problems and bringing in private sector sort of thought processes, but having no government experience doesn't lend themselves to be successful either, and that introduces a whole different type of risk, which is these companies coming in not used to some of the stringent requirements that are still in place, not used to, again, the way that they're motivated, whether it's financially or by, they're not used to the typical ways that we measure projects in the government.
Mm-hmm. Which could lead to, like you said, more risk and vulnerabilities, but also it could then slow down what could have been a more agile
process absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely.
So what are some examples that you've seen where the government is using more modern technology?
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. The government has recently started to adopt some of the disruptive technologies we've seen all over the place. But one example is that the Federal Reserve has recently been discussing the idea of creating a digital dollar to compete with the cryptocurrencies that are out there today. And really the goal there is to make banking more accessible, and that there's a whole portion of the population that doesn't have access to the banking system, and giving them a way to sort of join in and without having to go outside and in the crypto markets and things that are completely unregulated.
Right.
Another is I've been reading that Apple has been in very early discussion with the TSA about creating a digital ID for all people. So the way we have our Apple Wallet, or if you're using another technology, all of the smartphones have their comparable digital wallet. But taking that and expanding it, so in those cases where you're storing your credit cards and things like that, and in your phone, in your device, and then you're able to use those through your phone, and would be that the same would apply with your ID. So your driver's license, whatever it is, could be digitally stored on your phone to again make things a little bit more convenient. And now again, this is very early on from what I've heard, so it could be a ways off, but they're still thinking about things about how to use the disruptive technology to improve the end result.
That would be a good example too of where you would absolutely need the legacy knowledge and the regulatory knowledge and the compliance knowledge with something that may be more cutting edge.
Absolutely.
To have it work seamlessly.
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you for being here.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
With me.
Sure.
I really appreciate it. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us. For more trends and insights, subscribe now and join us next time for another episode of Tech Connect Talks That Transform.